Good evening, and today we are going to talk about parenting difficult children. Some children can easily disturb the peace at home or at school, and their unusual energies can cause you much inconvenience. What's one of the best keys to avoid constant fights with your child is the same skill that will help you through any crisis situation: your ability to remain calm. When a child is upset, anxious, or angry, keeping your cool is half of the battle. It's a way for you to put out the fire by throwing water on the flames instead of fanning it by adding more fuel from your own emotional tank. You must understand that staying calm when dealing with kids is much easier said than done, especially when you have a child who acts out. And knowing that you should be calm doesn't necessarily lead to you being calm, because when our brain is overloaded with emotions, the reaction begins. And when I say the reaction, I mean screaming, scolding, yelling, shutting down. But none of this can help you solve the problem. As we all know, parenting is a very emotional experience. Our kids and our interactions with them can trigger our own feelings of helplessness, frustration, confusion, hurt, disappointment, and rage, to name a few. And these feelings can quickly leave us feeling overwhelmed. Each trigger we have requires us to face ourselves, our limitations, our shame, our fears, our childhood insecurities, and the less than perfect qualities. Our children, just by being kids, can trigger painful emotions in us, and our reaction to these emotions can cause us to make poor parenting decisions. At those moments when we're trying to protect ourselves, we don't necessarily have our children's best interests in mind. When we feel anxious, we often do not speak kindly or calmly to them, and we often regret it, but later. And guilt follows us. And when we don't accept our own emotions, we act them out with our kids and our family members in unhealthy ways. When our feelings control us rather than us being able to control them, we have a much harder time helping our kids mature and deal with their life. The key is to remain calm and not respond with a reaction you'll regret about when the child pushes your buttons. And so today we'll talk about some ways how to stay calm while dealing with difficult children. The first way is to change your perspective. If you can think differently, you will be less angry at your child. Our kids can make us annoyed, mad, frustrated, and sometimes on daily basis. But remember that most of the time they are acting their rage. Our annoyance is understandable, but it's not about them, it's about us. It's about patience, tolerance, and usually it's about lack of tolerance, lack of patience. When your child swears at you, it's difficult to it's just difficult to control your emotions and to think about the perspective. But you should stop blaming your kid. And of course it's natural that your first thought is to feel angry, disappointed, and blame your kid. And here you shouldn't get me wrong, I don't mean that you shouldn't react in a proper way, that you should make a child feel that he or she will never face consequences. No. I want you to react, but while reacting you should keep in your mind that your child is doing something because he or she is a kid, and your job is to guide them by making sure that he takes responsibility and makes amends. The development task of teenagers is to experiment with new roles and new relationships. It's scary and frustrating for us, but this is what is natural for their development. It helps them learn from their own experiences. This is natural and normal. Our job is to guide them to better behavior by offering them natural consequences, not blaming them for their behavior. I'm not suggesting that we should allow their bad behavior. I'm suggesting that you should try not be mad at them for their developmentally appropriate actions, even though if those actions are annoying and disappointing. Your frustration may be about your own lack of patience, which is a problem that you are to figure out, not theirs. The second piece of advice is to identify your feelings. When you are about to let off steam, pause and identify your feelings. Is it irritation? Is it frustration? Is it hurt? What is bothering you? Name it. Identify it as your own. Say it to yourself. When I see my child doing A, B, or C, I feel something because I, and again something. For example, when I see my kid not helping around the house, I feel furious because I feel ineffective as a parent, and I'm scared that he will never be responsible. And then you should ask yourself what you need to work through within yourself and what proper feedback you need to give to your child. In other words, be a responsible parent by processing what belongs to and then decide what guidance you need to give to your child. In this scenario, you might say to yourself, I need to think about how I can improve my effectiveness as a parent. I have to deal with my anxiety about my child's future and find ways to resolve my own guilt. If we acknowledge and accept our own feelings, we can start doing the work of soothing them, understanding them, changing them, and releasing them. My next piece of advice is to take a pause, to breathe deep, and to think. So when you feel frustrated, when you feel angry, say to your child, I'm frustrated right now, so I'm going to take a few deep breaths, calm myself down, and figure out how to best deal with this situation. We can talk later. When you're physically or emotionally threatened, your adrenaline rises. You might be emotionally threatened when your child won't listen to you and you don't know what to do. The body reads this as a threat and prepares for fight or flight. by draining the energy from your brain and putting it into your muscles. That's why we all end up saying things we regret about later. And that is why it is necessary to use calming tools of pausing, breathing, and thinking. Without them, you won't be able to solve the problem. And the last piece of advice for today is to let go of worry and focus on what's good. Understand that worrying about your child is a negative act. Worrying also makes your child anxious because he comes to believe that there is something with him to be worried about. He becomes nervous. Our imagination runs wild with images of all the worst possible outcomes happening. But it's important to realize that the more you worry and have negative images floating around in your brain, the more a natural pathway is formed, making you worry more and more, easier and easier. So you worry more, not less. Therefore, try to fill your imagination with positive outcomes rather than negative ones. After all, you don't know the outcome anyway, and imagining things turning out positively will help you feel less stressed. When you are less stressed, your brain functions better, you feel better, and you have more of a chance of guiding your child more effectively. So here were the 4 pieces of advice I want to give you while parenting difficult children. I hope they were useful and that you won't have problems with parenting children. Thank you.